let's switch the energy up a little bit, right? And so we got a couple of things that we haven't pulled out the bag yet that we've been sitting on because the podcast is going to grow and we're going to bring some new things every year, hopefully, inshallah. But it's like the perfect moment. We have a segment we call Fallen Soldiers. This is for those players that were big time, but our generation doesn't know about them. It's something that, you know, within the basketball world, this guy's a legend, or this guy did a lot for hoop as far as making it grow. And everybody within the basketball world knows who he or she is, but it's time to shed some light on that person. So for our Fallen Soldiers segment, and this is one where Coach King leads, he goes in, OG goes in, and he pulls out from the mental Rolodex a few names that, hey, you guys don't know, but you should know. And so, OG, what you got for us for the Fallen Soldiers today?
Well, I'm gonna say the name, but I want you to kind of read off some of this guy's concepts because this is your team.
Yeah,
you got to know this more than anybody. I want to talk about one of the all-time Laker greats that his name is his jersey is retired, his name is mentioned, but he doesn't get the love that he deserves. And that's Elgin Baylor. The late, great Elgin Baylor just passed away not too long ago. And he's a person that if he had the visibility in terms of social media and things like that, now that the basketball world would definitely stand up and applaud him because he was a bad man.
So Kobe always credits him learning his crossover and pull-up jumper from watching Elgin, right? I do remember hearing that, but Elgin's also a legend because he's from the DMV.
Yeah.
He went to spin guard, like he's right there, DC guy. So I'm gonna read the stats right here. Over 14 years as a Laker, Elgin Baylor averaged 27, 13 boards, and 4 assists.
No.
And then he had 3 years.
Hold on. 27.7. So that's
28 and 14. And 14 boards. 28 and 14. And then his 3 best scoring years, 1960, 61, and 62, he averaged 35, 38, and 34. But his circumstances were a bit different, right? And so it started in college. We've never heard of Seattle University. Now, one time, I don't even know how he went from DC to Seattle, right? So that's a story we got to look into.
We got to look that up.
But in 1958, Elgin Baylor led Seattle University to the Final Four against Kansas State, Temple, and Kentucky Wildcats. That's the Adolph Rupp era. Like Seattle University.
They're not even supposed to be there.
Come on, man.
Yeah.
And like that's like Bill Russell taking San Francisco University. You know, that's gangster right there.
Right.
And then losing in the championship game where he was still named MVP, double teamed that entire night against that Kentucky team, and he had 25 points and 19 boards.
Man.
This is fresh off. This is fresh out of DC, right? And then just to give you an insight on what the pay was like during that year, yes, he won Rookie of the Year in 1959, where he was making $22,000 in 1958, making him the second highest paid player behind Wilt.
And that was groundbreaking money back then.
Yeah, which was 20, and Wilt was making $22,500, right? And now you've been telling me stories about that time and when he was playing that makes what he did even more incredible. And don't even hold back. Don't give me just tell the truth. Go ahead deep into what he was doing outside of hoops. Was hoop really the priority? And I'm going to look up what 22,000 is equivalent to now.
Okay. You know, despite him averaging these massive numbers and playing for a historic franchise, one of the building blocks of the Lakers, actually, people don't know that he missed games on the weekends because he was in the Army Reserves. You know,
go slow.
Yeah. Well, let me say, he would only play on weekends because he was in Army Reserves. And I couldn't remember what it was exactly, but he also had another job as well. So we're talking about a man who's an NBA all-time great that had a job, and he's still coming in and he's still playing his other greats and putting up numbers. And so, I'm always telling Coach Ryan about how today's players are, complain too much and they don't realize that they're actually very, very blessed in comparison to the circumstances that the older players had to go through to build the foundation that the NBA has right now. And Elgin Baylor was a prime example of this, man.
Elgin Baylor was also an actor. This is crazy, but no, like what you just said is that Elgin Baylor was in the Army Reserves and didn't play every game because he was in the Army Reserve. Like, what? Jerry Webster's his teammate, right?
Yes.
And Wilt.
Yep.
Like, because on Winning Time, they talked about that because he got one ring, right? He might have had more if it was full time, but really, because your pops got to really live through that era. Yep. And like, what was the legend like with that though?
We talk about the pay, we talk about the job, but we didn't even talk about the added, difficulty in terms of circumstance with racism.
Yeah.
There were a lot of factors that led to the legend of these guys. Oh man, Elgin just had 71 last night, and that's after, he can't stay in the same hotel with his teammates. That's after he can't eat dinner in the same restaurant with his teammates. I can't remember what town they were in, but they actually went to go play somewhere. And the only place in town that would serve them dinner was a truck rest stop. And we're talking about
the Lakers.
Yeah, we're talking about an individual that's one of the all-time Laker greats wasn't allowed to be served dinner. And he had to go to a rest stop. A truck rest stop outside of town. So you put that in the context in terms of what players have today. Shut the hell up and play, man. What was the equivalent of the money right back then?
$220,000. That's what it would be today.
Come on, man.
Yeah, that 3.66 now.
So now you understand why he had a job.
Right.
You got a family. You got to support your family. So,
in L.A.
In L.A.
Yeah.
So.
And there's taxes still.
I'm sure there were. I feel like, man, there's got to be something where, you're pretty good at this. We need to start an initiative, man, where all the organizations that have jerseys retired from the older guys, there needs to be a social media push periodically, once a year, to just recognize them, to push that to the younger generation so they can have a better respect for the game and know that what you see now wasn't always the norm.
Right.
Some people had to put up with a lot of crap and break down a lot of barriers to make the game what it is today and still perform at a high level. We ask guys to perform at a high level now just by giving 110% effort, when those guys gave 110% effort in spite of everything else. Yeah,
and that was 14 seasons. But how would you describe Elgin Baylor's game, though? Because, we don't have any footage. We don't have any. They might have some old tapes that get played around, but from what we heard from your pops, what you did, what you were able to see, if you were able to see anything with clips, but how would they describe his game? Like, how would you break it down and make it visible or something that imagery-wise?
How can I say, from clips I've seen and just listening to my dad, how can I say this, man? Big, fast, powerful, and smooth. You know what I mean? Almost like a LeBron type, but without the vision, passing, but more of a killer instinct, you're in my way, I'm going to run over you and get buckets. And, based on some of the things that we talked about that he had to overcome every night, you can see why he playing with some anger.
Oh man.
So, but he,
This is spontaneous.
Yeah.
But do you think Coach Jones will answer the phone right now?
Oh, he might. He might. Let me give him a call. Let's see what's up.
Let's see. Let me disconnect. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because this would be good, man, to get Jones.
It's up right now for you to BTA2.
All right.
Yeah, so we're gonna try to get the OG. If y'all remember, OG was on earlier in the season, and he gave us some of those legendary breakdowns on what the game used to be like. He gave us a Moses Malone story. So this Elgin Baylor stuff is right up his alley.
This is backyard.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's ringing.
I know he was busy, man. He was selling his house. Coach Jones, what's up, man?
What's up with you?
Nothing much. I got Coach Ryan on the phone right here.
What's up, Coach? How we doing?
What's up? Pretty good. How you doing? Excuse me, Coach Ryan.
That sounds crazy right now, OG.
So Coach, do you have a quick minute to talk?
Sure, I'm driving. I can have a quick minute for Coach Ryan.
Okay. Thank. So we're live right now, filming an episode of the podcast, and we're just trying to give the listeners a little bit on Elgin Baylor, and so the latest topic was we need to describe his game, and so Ryan thought it'd be a good idea to call you because you're somebody that got a chance to actually see him play, and you can describe his game a little bit.
Elgin Baylor was the early version of Dr. J.
Mm-hmm.
He was the early 50s version of Dr. J. They used to talk about Elgin Baylor could go up for a jump shot, and he would hang there for a second. And like Elgin said, well, I'm just going to wait till you go down, and I'm going to stay.
Okay.
Elgin was, I would say, probably the first real superstar that was African American in the Washington D.C. area.
See,
he was the man in the Washington metropolitan area in the early 50s.
Okay. Now my question is how does a guy from Spingarn end up at Seattle University?
Well, actually, he went to Spingarn, right? But he first went to before he went to Spingarn, he went to Phelps. He actually went to Phelps first.
Okay.
He went to Phelps for, I can't remember if he went there for 1 year or 2 years, but he went to Phelps first. He actually dropped out of school.
Oh, wow.
He dropped out of school for a year because Elgin was like, hey, I don't need college. He was interested in basketball, but he wasn't a basketball fanatic. Because you got to remember, in those days, basketball was just another sport. Today, basketball is a fanatic. It's fanatic. In that day and time, it wasn't. So he actually dropped out of Bell. I think was out for a year, maybe a year and a half. Then when he went back to Spingarn.
That's amazing.
I think he even sat out a year at Seattle before he played.
Yeah, he did. He actually was playing for, I can't remember, it was like one of those semi-pro teams. Today it would be an AAU team that he played with, and that's how he kind of got out west. Because Elgin like a Rolling Stone. Elgin really did. Yeah, Elgin just rolled.
Yeah,
and he was even undecided about playing professional basketball.
We can tell.
Yeah, he was. I guess the game. He's one of those guys that the game came so easy for, right? That it didn't phase him one way or the other. Plus, the other thing you got to remember, Elgin grew up during segregation, and I know Ryan. I know you know what Turkey Ticket is, right?
I haven't heard of that.
Yeah, you haven't heard of it? So the playground university that everybody used to go to. And then I guess about maybe 5 or 6 blocks from Catholic University.
Okay.
And Elgin grew up in that area, right? So his attraction to basketball wasn't like, this is what I got to do. Because this is something that's interesting. Turkey tickets was only for white people to play. And they used to lock gates. So they could not go in there and play. So basketball was a hit or miss sport. Actually, they were so poor, they didn't have a basketball. They first worked out with tennis balls. They finally got a volleyball. And at some point, they finally got a raggedy basketball.
Man, look, we didn't know y'all were getting that gym today. That one right there was heavy because I'm sitting here listening because I remember hearing about the pull-up jumper because I remember Kobe talking about Elgin is who he watched. And Elgin was the one that he saw pull up, and then he was like, all right, I got to go back to the court and practice this. But when Coach tells me Elgin Baylor was averaging 30, averaging 28, 14, and 4 for a career, but he was in the Army Reserve during the week, or he had a side job, like.
Yep, because at that time you got drafted, and if you got drafted, you went. So a lot of guys, in order to not get drafted, would join the reserves because if you got drafted, you were gone. But Elgin and a lot of guys during that time actually joined the reserves, so they could, play ball and serve their country also because it was mandated in those days. So if you got drafted, you went.
So, Coach,
because hell, I was scared I was going to get drafted.
Hey, Coach, so did you know that Elgin was an actor?
Oh, yeah.
You never told me that, man.
Renaissance man. Well, I had an older cousin who hung out in D.C., and he got to know a lot of those guys. He's passed away now, but he told me a lot. He took me to a lot of places when I was a kid. So
yeah. So Elgin was like Jim Brown in the blaxploitation movies.
Yeah. That's about it. Yeah, that's about it.
Elgin does look like he could have played Goldie. Yeah, for sure. Rest in peace.
Hey, Coach. Right now, who's your favorite to win it?
Oh. Well,
See?
because you call me the OG, I'm gonna go with the OG.
Okay.
Golden State.
Okay.
Now, I'm thinking if Boston figures out that they can, because I'm thinking that everybody in Boston is going to have to guard somebody Golden State has at least 4 guys that are offensive threats.
Yep.
Right? That means that Tatum and Brown are going to have to match up with somebody that can play. So I'm thinking if they can handle their matchup and can do what they did against the previous series against Boston, they got a shot. But right now, I got to go with the OG.
Okay. My question is, where does Steph Curry rank all time if he wins this or if he loses? Or does it change for you regardless of the result?
It doesn't change. I still think that Steph is one of the all-time great shooters of all time. As far as my list, he wouldn't change. He's still a great shooter, one of the greatest shooters I've seen. And I think the only thing that really separates Steph from earlier shooters is that he shot the 3. But there's been some incredible shooters down through the years. The thing that just makes the difference now is he's a 3-point shooter. You had people like on top of my head, like a Bill Chenier. Talk about maybe I won't say Walt Frazier. He wasn't in that category. A Wally Jones. Jerry West. The only thing that separated that one more point. that back the jump shot. I think that just makes it elevates his level, but to me, it doesn't elevate his skill level compared to those shooters that were out, years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm gonna say not only the difference in the 1 point, but also the style of play. The guys you just named, Jerry West knows the one thing they could also do, they could also get to the bucket at will.
Right.
And so that was a thing, that just wasn't the way the game was played, because there's no doubt in my mind that if you went back and the style of play changed a little bit, I mean, there'd be a lot of guys that could put up buckets. Because if you think about the late 80s, early 90s, those Denver Nuggets teams,
Sidney Moncrief,
man,
Alex English,
they were putting up numbers. That's the way they played.
That's some more stuff in there.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a Laker guy. I'm a Laker guy, so I can't pick Celtics. Like I don't want to see that. That's going to disgust me. But I don't want to hear the Warriors talk if they win, because I think this Steph media frenzy is super biased, because I don't think they ever talk about them objectively. But I'm gonna say Warriors in 7.
You got to be careful with Coach, because Ryan has a bias against light skinned people, Coach. And I keep telling him, I say, Coach Jones light skinned. So man, you attacking him.
My favorite people in the world light skinned. Shout out to Moms and James. Yeah, no, but thank you for that, OG, because we definitely were wanting to hear more about the Elgin Baylor energy. But one last question about Elgin, because you talked about last time we called, you gave us the mystique of Moses Malone, right? And if you had a chance to see him play outside of the court, or if you just had the chance to sit and listen to people talk about Elgin Baylor's game, what was that like if you were like a fly on the wall?
The thing that they used to talk about all the time with Elgin Baylor and the unique quality that he had, I said this book, was he had that illusion that he was hanging in the air.
Mm-hmm.
And he actually had a one-hand jump shot. He would go up in the air and he would actually take his left hand off the ball and shoot it with his right hand. So you know how everybody goes up down and you release the ball, and it's usually with both hands at the same time, or almost simultaneously. But Elgin actually, you could see him take his left hand off and shoot that ball all right hand.
Right.
So, Coach, because I didn't get a chance to see Elgin like that, and with the exception of clips and things like that, but I saw for his time, he was a rather large wing. He was big for a small forward back then and athletic. And so, from what I saw when Ryan asked me, I had always, put everything in text of LeBron, but more of a scorer's mentality than LeBron. Because Elgin got buckets.
Yeah, and he boarded too.
Yeah. So he was a big, strong guard, Like for me, when I always think of Dr. J, I'm always thinking about Mike. Because they're a little more, they were tough, of course, but a little more finesse. Right. LeBron comes at you,
brawler.
He gonna run over you.
Yeah.
Right.
So we got to find some clips of Elgin and put him up.
Woo. So my question is, with that team, because Elgin played with Wilt and Jerry West, right?
Yep.
He did not play with Wilt. He played with Wilt in the summertime. He played with Jerry West, but he never played professionally with them. Now, him and Wilt were best friends, because Wilt was actually his best man at his wedding.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, he was his best man. Actually, he was not the original best man. If I'm not mistaken, I think the original best man was, I want to say, Wally Jones. Wally Jones played for the 76ers back in the day when they had Chamberlain, Chet Walker, Hal Griggs. But Will Jones got so drunk at the party at the bachelor party that Wilt stepped in to be his best man because Wally Jones couldn't make it. He was so drunk.
Dang, man, King, that sounds like your type of party.
Shut up, man. Shut up.
Yo,
Well, hold on. The year they won it, though, I saw that Elgin played the first 9 games before he got injured with with those 3.
Yep.
So
Right.
So they ended up beating the Knicks, but can you imagine if Elgin didn't get hurt?
yeah, he got injured the first 9 games of the season.
Yep.
Right. But well, I think the other thing that was really sad is that Elgin never got a chance to win an NBA championship. And I think the other thing that kind of, I won't say tarnishes, but kind of downplays his talent is that, you know, he got into that lawsuit with a guy named Donald Sterling. That's his name.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that kind of hurt his image also. Not that he did anything wrong, but you know, allowed to sue people. And I think that kind of hurt him by going into, you know, management with them.
Yeah.
With him. So
Yeah.
I think those kind of things kind of, I would say, brought him down as far as his reputation was concerned.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the other thing too, you know, when at one time, and this was way back, the NBA Finals was not on TV. It used to come on delayed broadcast.
Yeah.
So the other problem that the Lakers had was that you never saw them play because they were on the West Coast.
Mm.
You know, you only saw them when they came east. So I think that's the other thing that hurt Elgin, that he didn't have the same exposure that, you know, that I guess just years later when Dr. J came through.
Right.
That's why I think a lot of people don't understand or got a chance to see him play.
Mm.
You know, but as far as talent was concerned, he was second to none. He was the prelude to Dr. J, Michael Jordan, and all them. He was doing that.
Man, that's beautiful. So to our listeners, that's another nugget for you guys. We wanted to make sure, because we're starting a segment called Fallen Soldiers, or the ones you don't know about. And Elgin is our first one that we brought up. And it's important that we make sure we bring history back to the forefront so that the young Bucks can respect the game, you know, the way that I was taught to respect the game. So we appreciate you, right, Coach. We definitely going to keep going. No problem. And over the summer, when Coach gets back, I'm sure you guys are going to have some talks that we're going to spark a few more conversations going forward. But that was big time. We appreciate you. Drive safe, man.
All right, man. Y'all take care now. Love you much.
All right, Coach. Take care.
Peace.
Man. All right, take care now.
That's tough. And to think about that, right? We talk about being associated with Donald Sterling. You know, because that's one of the things when I Googled Elgin to check up everything else, Donald Sterling, that lawsuit does pop up.
Yeah.
Right. And for a legend like that to be associated with him. And then, you know, he also was in the Winning Time series because it kind of showed that Dr. Bus kind of finessed him into doing some things so he can have the organization, because he knew if Donald Sterling was there, the Clippers were never going to be any good. Right. But man, those little things like that we don't know.
Yep.
What was his best man because his man was too drunk?
I'm telling you, man.
Yeah.
Wilt doesn't get the love he deserves just for being a gorilla on and off the court.
I mean, we might have, like I said, I have in my notes to have an entire episode dedicated to Wilt. Right? So that's going to require a team, because I need some people to go do some research and find some clips and some pics, because Wilt got a lot with him. Right? And that story is dope. But Fallen Soldiers, anything you want to reiterate or Jim, you want to leave with the people before we close out on Elgin Baylor? Like, you want them to go look for something, go study for something, or what is it?
Just, you know, I think I want to say, is there a book that he has out? I can't remember. I'm so far behind because we've been so busy. But I would like for people just to go back, and because social media has so many resources to pull up old clips and video and stuff, I'm sure somewhere out there, there's something on Elgin Baylor that people can look up and get a chance to see, because people got to know who he is. Because when people talk about the Laker greats, somehow his name gets left,
Only the players say it.
Yeah.
Only the Laker greats mention it.
Yeah.
Right. But I'm actually excited. I'm actually excited to go edit this and then add some of those clips that I find, because this is dope. I think when we hear about guys, when we hear from the OG like Coach Jones, or if I hear from you about players that I didn't get to watch that you did growing up, it reminds me that nothing is new.
Yeah.
It's just, you just build upon it, right? Because if you hear about what he was doing and how it was innovative during that time and everything else, it's something that we have seen before, but he was the foundation of it, to grow upon it, to know that Kobe got his pull-up game and everything from Elgin, right? And then the next generation get whatever they get from Kobe. That's Tatum, paying his tribute and so on and so forth. But it's important to go all the way back and see where it starts.
Yeah. See, I'm glad you said that, because people seem to think that like Kyrie, I think probably is the best finisher for an undersized guard. And that's saying a lot. That's saying a lot over AI and Zeke. But people are like, this is the first time that's been done. Can you imagine, say, having to guard or get a chance to see Earl the Pearl Monroe 30 years ago?
And see, that's a name that we got to bring back to the ones you don't know about.
Right.
Because you bring up Earl, Spike Lee say that's Black Jesus. Right? And I've seen some clips. I've seen him with the fro playing with his chain on the spin move and everything. But it's really a segment that deserves some more knowledge, because Earl the Pearl, I mean, let's stop right there, because we're talking about nicknames.
Yeah.
Earl the Pearl?
Right.
What? That's one of the most fire nicknames I've ever heard. Earl the Pearl Monroe.
Yeah. So,
right.
While Coach Jones was talking, I just made a note. We do have to do a segment on the NBA versus the ABA. People don't know. People like LaMelo Ball, right? It had the video of him getting out of like a green Lamborghini truck. He has some, that's what they did that every night.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And that's back in the day, like where it was
furs.
Yeah. It was, how can I say it? Like, culturally incorrect. People just didn't see minorities
balling like that.
Driving up in Rolls Royces and stuff like that.
That's a dope era, because this is where we talk about basketball and culture.
Yes.
That's the black exploitation movie era.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like that, all that Superfly, all that goes together to where it's like, just like now, you're talking about shoes, talking about commercials, branding or whatever. Hip hop, culturally, it goes along with basketball. Like, it grows together. Yeah. Like, wherever we put our imprint on, we'll definitely get to that. You
have a good, because you're in the fashion and the music and hooping. You'll love that era.
Yeah, and that era is crazy, because that's the Isley Brothers era. Like, all that energy in there. We'll have some dope pictures. That'll be for another time. But shout out to Elgin Baylor. Yeah. I'm gonna take my time and trying to find some things for that, because that's perfect right there, right? That's something that we gotta have in there. But fallen soldiers, the ones you don't know, there's nothing new under the sun. Let's make sure we do our history and check what came before us, so we can know where we're going next. Respect the game. Respect the game. Respect the game.